Chapter 21. As the winds died down and the snow ceased, the temporary truce that Jacob and I had devised slowly began to disintegrate. After an evening of being forced to listen to his dreams, the understanding I had felt toward him had all but evaporated. It didn't help matters that Bella kept repeating his name in her sleep. Jacob, my Jacob. Each time she uttered his name, said it with such devotion, a tiny piece of my heart broke away, splintered apart like a block of ice. The morning light filtered through the tent's fabric, casting everything in a faint glow. Bella's skin glistened with beads of perspiration, a welcome change from her shivering just hours ago. Her eyes slowly fluttered open, and she lifted her head. She began to shift away, but Jacob's arms reflexively tightened around her, and I heard the air whoosh out of her lungs. She pushed against him again and again, and craned her neck, our eyes meeting. Her eyes squinted against the sun's rays that shone behind me. "Is it any warmer out there?" she whispered. "Yes," I nodded. "I don't think the space heater will be necessary today." She shifted, presumably trying to free herself. I watched, slightly amused, as she struggled against Jacob's arms that seemingly refused to let her go. "Mine," he muttered in his sleep. "Some help?" she asked, her eyes pleading. "I would love nothing more. Did you want me to take his arms all the way off?" I asked, smiling. All she had to do was ask. "No, thank you." She rolled her eyes. "Just get me free. I'm going to get a heat stroke." I reached down, grasping the edge of the sleeping bag with one hand and the zipper with the other. The bag opened with a flick of the wrist. I jerked the sleeping bag away, sending Jacob onto his back. "What the... cold! Hey!" Jacob exclaimed, his eyes still heavy with sleep. I watched in horror as he began to roll back onto Bella. She thrust her hands in front of her to stop him, but he threw himself over. Her chest compressed with the weight of him, and she gasped as the air was forced from her lungs. In a fraction of a second, sanity stripped away, the truths destroyed, and all that mattered was protecting Bella. He was hurting her, whether he realized it or not, and I would not stand for it. I gripped his shoulder and threw him across the small space, the metal pole of the tent buckling under the weight of the impact. Bella's eyes widened, and her hand shot up to her mouth. A snarl ripped from Jacob's throat as his entire body began to vibrate. He spun around to face me, his eyes blazing with fury. "Who do you think you are? Don't you ever lay your hands on me!" I crouched, edging myself protectively in front of Bella. Vicious growls emanated deep from within my own chest. My vision blurred with the intensity of my rage. We stared at each other from across the tiny space. "Bring it on, bloodsucker!" "What's going on in there? Jake, are you okay?" "Stop it! Stop it!" Bella screamed, ducking around me and standing between us, stretching out her arms so the tips of her fingers rested on both of our chests. Jacob's eyes flickered from mine for a moment, and I gripped Bella's wrist instinctively, prepared to rip my way through the thin fabric of the tent and run with her if necessary. "Stop it now!" she growled, turning on me with a stern look on her face. I could feel the corners of my lips twitch with a grimace as I fought the urge to ignore her, but the consternation in her eyes kept my impulses at bay. "Jake, what do I do? Should I call for help?" My gaze shifted back to Jacob. His eyes narrowed ever so slightly, and the corner of his mouth twitched, but the vibrations were beginning to subside. His chest still rose and fell as he fought to control his temper. "Jacob?" Bella asked. "You're lucky she's here, Leech, or else—" He tore his eyes away from me and shifted them to Bella. "Are you hurt?" she pressed. "Of course not," he hissed. "It'd take more than that." She turned to me, her eyes hurt and demanding. She looked so much like Esme did whenever Emmett broke one of her precious antiques. "That wasn't nice," she reprimanded. "You should say sorry." "Yeah, Leech, apologize." What? Was she honestly telling me to apologize to that mongrel for protecting her? He was hurting her. "You must be joking," I exclaimed in disbelief. "He was crushing you." "Because you dumped him on the floor," she insisted, poking an accusing finger in my chest. "He didn't do it on purpose, and he didn't hurt me." Jacob crossed his arms and nodded, a smug smirk crossing his features. I wanted to reach across the space and wipe that smirk off of his face. Bella leaned in closer to me, her eyes demanding an answer. I shook my head and let out a groan. "My apologies, dog." "No harm done," he sneered. "Interesting turn of events, wouldn't you say?" That did it. I had been patient, and I had tried to be fair, but in that moment, seeing the arrogance on Jacob's face, I was done. It was time to show that mutt exactly where he stood. If he wasn't going to fight fair, then neither was I. Bella shivered slightly, wrapping her arms around herself. I bent down, picking up the now thawed parka that was left on the tent floor, and draped it over her shoulders. "Here," I whispered. "That's Jacob's," she protested, furrowing her brow. "Jacob has a fur coat." I cut my eyes to him. He merely shrugged. "I'll just use the sleeping bag again, if you don't mind." He climbed back into the downy fabric, wrapping it around himself and laying his head on his bent arm. "I wasn't quite ready to wake up." He yawned. "That wasn't the best night's sleep I ever had." "It was your idea," I reminded him. He buried his face into the sleeping bag, closing his eyes. "I didn't say it wasn't the best night I ever spent, because it was. Just that I didn't get a lot of sleep. I thought Bella was never going to shut up." Bella's eyes shot questioningly to me, her jaw slack. Her eyes glazed over, as though she were trying to remember her dreams, what she possibly could have said. She sucked her bottom lip between her teeth and bit down nervously. "I'm glad you enjoyed yourself," I muttered. "Oh, did I strike a nerve? Didn't you have a nice night then?" He smirked. "It wasn't the worst night of my life," I shrugged. "I had endured worse, much worse." "So it was bad. Interesting. How bad? Did it make the top 10? "Not a chance. I could count at least 100 days and nights, each worse than the last, when Bella and I were apart. Suffering that and enduring Jacob's advances on Bella weren't even comparable. But he didn't have to know that. I could let him believe it, think he was making headway, and then jerk the rug out from under him. After all he had forced me to endure, a little payback was only fair, right? "Possibly," I hedged. "Yeah, I bet it was. Probably the worst. You just don't want to admit it. I know it drives you insane to see me with her. Well, get used to it." He smirked as his eyes closed again. "But," I continued, "if I had been able to take your place last night, it would not have made the top 10 of the best nights of my life. Dream about that." I saw Bella's mouth drop open out of the corner of my eye, but my attention was on Jacob. "That does it," he thought. He sat up, fire burning in his eyes. "That truce didn't last long." "First light," I hissed under my breath, narrowing my eyes. "You know what?" He shook his head, his lips forming a tight line. "I think it's too crowded in here." I couldn't agree more. I felt Bella's elbow jab into my midsection just before she jerked it back and began rubbing it. "Guess I'll catch up on my sleep later then," he grimaced. "I need to talk to Sam anyway." "About time. I've been waiting to talk to you all night. The psychic said they're coming. An hour, maybe. You need to get your tail down here. I hate it when you can't hear me." My attention was torn between Jacob's huffing, Seth's whining, and Bella's look of disbelief. I could feel my hold on my temper slipping. If Jacob didn't get out of this tent soon. "Jake, wait!" Bella pleaded, reaching out for his arm. He jerked it away, refusing to look at her. "Please, Jake, won't you stay?" "No," he spat. Bella's shoulders slumped in defeat, and I got the distinct impression that she was about to cry. I could kill him for making her feel this way. "Bells, don't do that to me." He turned toward her, smiling lightly and reaching for her hand. I clenched my fists at my sides, forcing myself to remain in place. "Don't worry about me, Bells," he reassured her. "I'll be fine, just like I always am. Besides, you think I'm going to let Seth go in my place?" "Why not?" Seth whined. "Have all the fun and steal all the glory?" "Right," he laughed. "I'm not afraid of a fight, unlike someone else I know." He narrowed his eyes at me before leaning out of the tent opening. "Be careful," she began, but he exited the tent before she finished. Her fingers were still outstretched, trembling, grasping at air. "Give it a rest, Bella," he grumbled as he zipped the door shut. She stared at the tent wall, dumbfounded. Her heart beat furiously in her chest, and her cheeks were completely flushed. I crossed the small space and pulled her toward me. She made no effort, seemingly frozen in a state of shock. "Bella?" I whispered. Without looking at me, she turned her head into my chest, sighing softly and gripping my t-shirt with her fist. I reached up, stroking her face, and listened as Jacob was brought up to speed by his pack. I despised him for the simple fact that he had so much power over her, the power to completely overwhelm her with worry. If he truly cared about her, he would never put her through the kind of pain she was forced to endure. Then again, I squeezed my eyes shut. I could be found guilty for doing precisely the same thing. I caused Bella immeasurable suffering when I left her. But that's where Jacob and I differ. My actions were done out of love, purely selfless, for Bella. But Jacob acted on impulses for his own gain. "How much longer?" Bella whispered, breaking me from my thoughts. "Alice told Sam it would be another hour or so." She leaned back, her eyes searching mine. "We stay together, no matter what?" Although it was what we had already agreed upon, it was difficult for me to commit to that. There were so many things that could happen, so many scenarios where my family could need my help. "No matter what" would mean that I would have no choice but to take her with me. Could I promise that? "No matter what," I agreed, with some apprehension. "I know." She laid her head back on my chest. "I'm terrified for them too." "They know how to handle themselves," I said, trying to reassure her as well as myself. "I just hate that I'm missing the fun." She sighed. I wrapped my arms around her, hugging her tightly and kissing her forehead. "Don't worry," I soothed. Sure," she muttered. "Do you want me to distract you?" I asked, tracing the contour of her cheek. Perhaps I could use a little distraction myself. She shivered slightly. "Ew, seriously?" Jacob thought. "Jacob, will you please ignore them and focus? We're going into battle in less than an hour. You need to get your head in the game." "Maybe not right now," I answered myself, shifting away from her for fear I would make her cold again. I didn't want to give Jacob a reason to come back after all. "There are other ways to distract me," she said, though not nearly as fun. "What would you like?" "You could tell me about your 10 best nights." She looked up at me through her eyelashes. "I'm curious." "Try to guess," I teased, generally interested in what she thought I would choose for my best nights. She shook her head and made a face. "There's too many nights I don't know about. A century of them." "I'll narrow it down for you," I grinned, tapping the tip of her nose with my finger. "All of my best nights have happened since I met you." "Really?" Her eyes widened in disbelief. How could she doubt it? She was the very best thing to ever happen in my life, in my existence. Every moment with her was better than the last. "Yes, really." I made a face, nearly mirroring her own. "And by quite a wide margin, too." She furrowed her brow and pulled her bottom lip between her teeth. Her arms were crossed, and she was drumming her fingers lightly against my arm, as she thought. "I can only think of mine," she confessed. "They might be the same," I said, now even more intrigued to know what she thought her best nights were, which moments she cherished most. "Well," she began, "there was the first night, the night you stayed." "Yes," I smiled. "That's one of mine, too. Of course you were unconscious for my favorite part." Her eyes lit up. "That's right. I was talking that night, too." "Yes," I nodded. Her enthusiasm quickly dissolved as her cheeks began to flush. "What did I say last night?" she whispered. Should I tell her? I didn't know if I'd be able to repeat the words without betraying the effort I put into guarding my feelings. I needn't cause her undue distress by making her worry about how her words affected me. Jacob was the one who wore his heart on his sleeve, and I wasn't about to stoop to his tactics. I shrugged, attempting to appear nonchalant. "That bad?" She cringed. She wasn't going to let this go. Nothing too horrible. Horrible? Maybe for you, Jacob thought. Her eyes widened. Please tell me. Mostly you said my name, the same as usual. That's not bad. She nodded, but waited, prompting me to divulge more of what she said. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. She watched me intently as the words were on the tip of my tongue. I couldn't bring myself to look at her. I couldn't let her see how her words had cut me. Near the end, though, I hesitated, my voice barely above a whisper. You started mumbling some nonsense about Jacob, my Jacob. I heard a sharp intake of breath. That's right, and she's my Bella. Your Jacob enjoyed that quite a lot, I finished, keeping my eyes trained on the canopy of fabric above my head. I couldn't force myself to look at her. She pressed her lips against my jaw. Sorry, she muttered. That's just the way I differentiate. Differentiate? I asked, lowering my gaze. Between Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, she explained. Between the Jacob I like and the one who annoys the hell out of me. That's what she says to alleviate her guilt. She's trying to let you down easy. Face it, bloodsucker. She loves me, and you know it. That makes sense, I nodded, ignoring Jacob, the tiny fraction of relief I felt tainted by his taunting. Tell me another favorite night, I said, changing the subject to divert the attention away from myself. She thought for a moment. Flying home from Italy. Really? I couldn't imagine how that night could have been one of her best. Mine, certainly, because Bella was alive and back in my arms. But she seemed so despondent, so distant. Is that not one of yours? She asked. No, it's one of mine, actually. But I'm surprised it's on your list. Weren't you under the ludicrous impression that I was acting out of a guilty conscience, and was going to bolt as soon as the plane doors opened? Yes, she smiled at the memory. But still, you were there. You love me more than I deserve, I whispered, leaning down to kiss the crown of her head. I was momentarily baffled that she considered that night to be one of her best, but the more I thought on it, the more it seemed to make sense. I imagined I would feel quite the same. After months of separation, even if we could never be together again, the chance to have just a few more short hours with her would be the most precious treasure I could ever hope for. She chuckled. Next would be the night after Italy. Yes, I smiled. That's on the list. You were so funny. Funny? She asked in an affronted tone. I had no idea your dreams were so vivid. It took me forever to convince you that you were awake. She was so convinced that it had all been a dream, that I was a figment of her imagination. She nearly made me question it myself. Much like I did in Voltura, it took me several moments to realize that the Bella in my arms was real, and not an apparition that accompanied me on my journey. I'm still not sure, she muttered. You've always seemed more like a dream than reality. I reached out to caress her cheek. My existence was supposed to be the stuff of nightmares, not dreams. If anyone should feel like they were dreaming, it should be me. I still couldn't fathom how I'd been so lucky to find her, to fall in love with her, and for her to love me in return. Tell me one of yours now. Did I guess your first place? Now this I gotta hear. I promised myself I was done fighting fair, that Jacob would no longer get a free pass, and now was the perfect opportunity to show him exactly where he stood. No, that would be 2 nights ago, when you finally agreed to marry me. She what? No, no, no. They're getting married? Wow, too bad, man. Jacob, focus. Now is not the time to let your emotions get away from you. Bella made a face. My attention was torn between her reaction and those of Jacob and the wolf pack. That doesn't make your list? I asked, arching an eyebrow. Yes, she hesitated. It does, but with reservations. I don't understand why it's so important to you. You already had me forever. I can't listen to this. I feel sick. I need to... 100 years from now, when you've gained enough perspective to really appreciate the answer, I'll explain it to you. I smiled. I'll remind you to explain. In 100 years, she teased. Did what we have together mean nothing to her? I was so sure. No, she can't. She can't. No, I can't. The sound of a furiously beating heart came nearer to the tent, but paused. Jacob was no longer wanted or needed, and it was time he realized that. "Are you warm enough?" I asked her. "I'm fine," she replied with a puzzled expression. "Why?" Before I could answer her, I was cut off by Jacob's anguished cry from outside of the tent. The ear-splitting howl pierced the quiet of the mountainside, and Bella's eyes widened as she realized exactly what had happened. "No, no, no!" Jacob broke out into a sprint, unable to endure the pain of his loss. I listened with a sense of satisfaction as the sound of the thudding paws dissipated into the distance. "Because your space heater has just reached its limit." Her head jerked to the side, in the direction the cry had emanated from. "Truce over," I whispered under my breath. She turned her head back to me. "Jacob was listening?" she whispered. "Yes." "You knew?" Her eyes narrowed. "Yes." Her eyes widened at the revelation. Her mouth opened and closed to speak, but no words came out. "I never promised to fight fair," I whispered, "and he deserves to know." She let out a strangled cry as her face fell into her hands. Her entire body began to tremble, and I became acutely aware that I had perhaps made a grave error in judgment. Had I gone too far? "Are you angry with me?" I asked, afraid of what her answer might be. "Not you," she murmured. "I'm horrified at me." I reached for her hands, urging her to pull them from her face. "Don't torment yourself," I pleaded, feeling immensely guilty that my actions had distressed her. "Yes," she snapped, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I should save my energy to torment Jacob some more. I wouldn't want to leave any part of him unharmed." He knew what he was doing. "Do you think that matters?" She looked at me, her eyes red and brimming with tears. "Do you think I care whether it's fair, or whether he's adequately warned? I'm hurting him. Every time I turn around, I'm hurting him again. I'm a hideous person." I pulled her to me, wrapping her in my arms and stroking her back in a soothing motion. "No, you're not," I insisted. Did she not realize that hurting someone, either me or Jacob, was inevitable? Whether she liked it or not, she was going to have to make a choice, and someone was going to get hurt. "I am," she cried, pressing her palms against my chest and pushing me away. "What's wrong with me? I have to go find him." "Bella, he's already miles away, and it's cold." "I don't care. I can't just sit here." She knelt down and hurriedly began to lace up her boots. She stumbled as she reached the zipper and yanked it open, spilling the bright sunlight into the small space. She stepped out, the snow crunching under her boots. She held her hand up, shielding her eyes from their light reflecting off the white mountainside. Her head shifted from side to side, searching for any indication as to where Jacob could have gone. I followed her helplessly, as she staggered through the trees after the trail of paw prints in the snow. Seth looked up as we passed. "I wouldn't let her get too far," he warned. "Can you tell Jacob to come back?" I whispered under my breath. What else could I do? If Bella was going to insist on speaking with him, he would have to come back to us. I couldn't have her traipsing through the forest with the newborns on their way. All of our careful planning would have been for nothing. Seth cocked his head to the side. "I'll try, but I doubt he'll listen to me. Jake?" "Leave me alone, Seth." "You need to come back." "You need to mind your own business." Seth rolled his eyes, and I could quickly see this was going nowhere. If Bella insisted on speaking to him, I would have to bring him back myself. I reached out, grabbing Bella's wrist. She tried to jerk her hand back, but I kept a firm grasp on her arm. "You can't go after him. Not today. It's almost time, and getting yourself lost won't help anyone, regardless." She continued to struggle against me, completely ignoring my pleas. "I'm sorry, Bella. I'm sorry I did that." "You didn't do anything. This is my fault. I did this. I did everything wrong. I could have... I shouldn't have... She began to break down, her body quivering as tears spilled down her crimson cheeks. Bella, Bella. I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her to me. Her body shuddered as she sobbed, her tears soaking my shirt. I should have told him. I should have, she blubbered. He shouldn't have found out like this. I squeezed my eyes shut. I would have to bring him back. Bella couldn't stand seeing Jacob in pain, and I couldn't bear to have her in pain. What other choice did I have in the matter? I stroked her tear-stained cheek, struggling with the decision I was about to make. Perhaps the worst decision I would ever make. Do you want me to see if I can bring him back, so you can talk to him? There's still a little time. She nodded her head, but refused to look at me. Stay by the tent, I told her. I'll be back soon. I began running toward the sound of Jacob's thoughts, choking back a strangled sob. My heart was wrenched in my chest, the splintered ice on the verge of shattering. For her to be so upset, so distraught, there had to be more to their relationship than she would admit. My attention was split. I was searching for Jacob, but I was watching Bella through Seth's eyes. She seemed so helpless, so despondent. She paced the campsite nervously, wearing a path within the one I had created last night. A flash of brown fur came into view in front of me, and I leapt over him, landing directly in his path. His hackles rose and he growled furiously, baring his teeth. "Get out of my way, leech!" "Jacob." I raised my hands defensively. "Just go back, please." "What the hell for? You won, end of story. I don't need to go back just so she can relieve her guilt." "Please, Jacob," I pleaded, struggling to hide my disgust that I was being reduced to begging a dog. "She's so hurt. She just wants to talk to you. If you love her—" "Don't say it. Don't you dare say it. If I love her, let her go, right? Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm letting her go. If she feels guilty, well, that's her own damn fault. If I don't come back with you, she's going to keep looking. She'll keep trying to follow you. You know what that means." His eyes widened, and I watched as he imagined Bella struggling blindly in the woods, lost and broken, then screaming, her voice cut off in a gurgle as a newborn crushed her windpipe with a savage bite. "I hate you for this." "I can live with that," I shrugged. "But what I can't endure is seeing Bella in pain, or having her in danger. Please just talk to her." I wondered if he could hear the pain in my voice, see on my face how much it hurt to plead with him like this, for Bella's sake. My jaw flexed, and I watched him weigh the options in his mind. "Fine," he finally grumbled, pawing at the dirt before turning to go back. He paused, looking back at me. "You first." I rolled my eyes as I began walking toward the camp. Jacob followed a short distance behind, reluctant to return to Bella. His thoughts were clouded, full of doubt as he struggled to deal with his feelings for Bella, and the relentless ribbing he was receiving from his packmates. "Jacob, give it up. It's only going to hurt more. Didn't I tell you? I told you so. Will everyone please shut up?" I heard his footsteps pause, and a ripping sound echoed through the forest. I turned to see Jacob emerging from the trees, straightening the sweatpants on his waist. I arched an eyebrow, and he merely shrugged. "It was getting a little too loud." I nodded and continued walking. Through Seth's eyes, I could see that Bella's pacing had become frantic, her eyes darting around her. With both of us gone, she must have felt entirely too vulnerable. "Something's wrong," Seth thought. "A new development. The psychic said, 'Where are they?'" What could it possibly be? Did she finally see who was behind the fight? I increased my pace, anxious to get back. Jacob jogged behind me. I heard Seth's low growl as the campsite neared our view. Whatever was going on with the pack had set him on edge. "It's just us, Seth," Jacob called from behind me. I broke through the trees, and my eyes fell on Bella. Her face was so torn as she met my eyes. I wondered if she realized exactly how much pain this caused me, how much I hated to see her unhappy. But I wouldn't do that to her. I forced my face into a cool mask of calm, refusing to make her feel any pity on my behalf. Seth bounded toward us, his eyes trained on me. "Someone's coming. The psychic said you need to know. Someone called Volture. They'll be looking for Bella after the battle." "The Volture," I nodded, grimacing. "Yes, that's all we need. I muttered, before turning to Seth. I suppose we shouldn't be surprised, but the timing is going to be very close. Please have Sam ask Alice to try to nail the schedule down better. You got it, he nodded. I crossed the space to Bella, taking her hands in mine. Bella, I whispered. She startled, but looked up at me, the pain in her eyes breaking my heart even further. As much as the thought tortured me, I needed to leave. She deserved to have her private moment with Jacob, free of my interference, and I needed to ask Alice for more details on the Voltures' plans. There's a bit of a complication, I explained. I'm going to take Seth a little ways away and try to straighten it out. The corners of her eyes pinched, and she tugged at the bottom of her lip with her teeth. I won't go far. I reached up and caressed her cheek. But I won't listen either. I know you don't want an audience, no matter which way you decide to go. My voice betrayed me, breaking on the last words. A tear slipped down her cheek, and I wiped it away with my thumb. Hurry back, she whispered. I leaned in to kiss her lips, wondering if she would change her mind, if this would be our last kiss. I dropped her hands and turned, motioning for Seth to follow me. I lowered my head, running my fingers through my hair. What if I lost her? What if she chose him? I didn't want to fathom the consequences if that happened. How completely destroyed I would be. I squeezed my eyes shut and clenched my hand to my chest as I trudged into the forest.